On the fourth day of Jasmus, I reviewed 3 skele-bois.
SPOOKWARE. I'm a real big WarioWare fan. There's just something about the extremely simple yet eclectic collection of micro games, the lovable characters, and the bizarre humor of the games that just hits all the right sweet spots for me. I even picked up a physical copy of the newest one that just came out a couple months ago, and what do you know, it's pretty good. But today we're not talking about that. We're talking about SPOOKWARE. What is a SPOOKWARE, you may ask? Well, it's an indie game that wears its biggest influence on the cover, or in this case, in the title. As you might expect, SPOOKWARE is much like WarioWare in that it contains a bunch of hectic micro games that you have to beat to progress, except they instead tend to focus on a comedy horror aspect. This already sounds like a neat little idea on its own, as surprisingly it's hard to find an indie game out there that's tried to tackle the WarioWare style. But SPOOKWARE goes another step beyond by actually spending the majority of the game's length on an RPG-like narrative. Really? Yeah, the game actually has a proper story which centers around 3 skele-bros named Lefty, Middy, and Righty. Each chapter of the game takes you on one of their connecting misadventures, such as their attempts to attend high school, solve a murder mystery on a cruise, and run a successful restaurant in the big city. The game does a good job giving us amusing dialogue between the 3 bros, as well as entertaining us with a number of wacky NPCs that we meet along the way. Interestingly, while each chapter does include a sequence of microgames done in a row a la WarioWare, usually at the end, a lot of the time you actually find yourself doing isolated microgames in the middle of the exploration narrative parts of the game, such as playing the bongos to convince other students to join your band, or sketching an outline of a body with chalk. This new way of utilizing microgames is pretty cool and lets you scratch that gaming itch in between the chunks of the story. As for the wandering story bits, the way it plays out reminds me a lot of Paper Mario, even visually with the flat paper cut style characters in a 3D environment. I wouldn't say that the writing and dialogue quite hits that superb style of Paper Mario, or even something like Undertale, but those are some pretty high bars to reach, and overall it was very enjoyable. It admittedly felt like the microgames weren't always quite as intuitive as the ones in WarioWare, especially with what's supposed to be the quick text hints. Pick a sarcophagus. Wait, I clicked on it. I was supposed to drag the body, I'm guessing. They didn't say put in sarcophagus, they said pick a sarcophagus. But never to the degree that it made things frustrating. I also think that while the characters all being skeletons is a cool concept, it does unfortunately mean that there isn't quite as much variety with the various characters as something like the aforementioned Paper Mario or Undertale, since those games have a bunch of different species running around. They do a pretty good job giving the characters distinct personalities to make up for that though. If there's one more thing to suggest, I'd say that the hell yeah victory tone is sweet at first, but it's unfortunately the only one you'll hear over and over as you play through the game. Hell yeah. If they threw in some more sound clips to alternate between for this, then I think we'd be golden. I like how each of the chapters gives one of the 3 skele-bros a spotlight to shine in, and features microgames with differing control schemes. For instance, while most of the games are played via the arrow keys, all the Chapter 2 microgames utilize the mouse only instead. And Chapter 3 introduces a Diner Dash style gameplay in between the long stretch of cooking-based microgames. As of now, there's 1 episode of the game containing 3 chapters, with 3 more episodes of 3 chapters each coming in the future. It took me about 4.5 hours to beat the game casually running through it, but I didn't 100% it or unlock all the microgames, meaning that there is still more to do. Overall, this game was a lot of fun, and it makes me hope that the WarioWare team sees it and gains some inspiration of their own. Could you imagine playing as Wario, running around Diamond City, interacting with fun characters like Orbulon, Dr. Crygor, Ashley, in a Wario adventure game with a proper fleshed out story? Oh, okay, we may be asking for a bit much there, knowing Nintendo, but as for now, we do have SPOOKWARE to fill that fantasy.